In the annals of English history, few conflicts have left as indelible a mark as the War of the Roses. This tumultuous period, spanning from 1455 to 1487, saw the kingdom torn asunder by a bitter struggle for the throne. Two great houses, both descended from the illustrious Plantagenet line, found themselves locked in a deadly embrace that would shape the fate of England for generations to come. On one side stood the House of Lancaster, their banners adorned with the crimson rose. On the other, the House of York, their standard bearing the pristine white rose. These floral emblems, seemingly innocuous, would come to represent a divide that ran deep through the heart of the nation. For 3 long decades, the land was awash with blood, as nobles and common folk alike were swept up in the tide of war. Alliances shifted like sand beneath the feet, and treachery lurked in every shadow. The conflict that unfolded was not merely a clash of arms, but an intricate dance of political machinations, personal vendettas and dynastic ambitions. It is perhaps no wonder, then, that this turbulent era has captured the imagination of storytellers and audiences alike. In recent years, the War of the Roses has found new life as the inspiration for one of the most celebrated fantasy epics of our time, George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, better known to many as Game of Thrones. Martin himself has acknowledged the debt his work owes to this historical conflict. The author's approach, which he describes as a blend and mix of historical events, has woven the threads of the War of the Roses into a tapestry of fantasy that has enthralled millions. The parallels between fact and fiction are striking, and none more so than in the central conflict that drives both narratives. In Martin's created world, the bitter rivalry between House Stark of the North and House Lancaster of the South mirrors, with uncanny precision, the struggle between the houses of York and Lancaster. Even the names themselves echo their historical counterparts, a deliberate choice that serves to ground the fantasy in a sense of historical authenticity. But the similarities run far deeper than mere nomenclature. The political intrigues that characterized Game of Thrones find their roots in the complex web of alliances and betrayals that defined the War of the Roses. Noble houses rose and fell with dizzying speed, their fortunes as changeable as the English weather. Marriages were brokered, not for love, but as political chess moves, each alliance carefully calculated to tip the balance of power. Perhaps no historical figure from this period has cast a longer shadow over Martin's work than Richard III of York. This controversial monarch, whose brief reign marked the twilight of the Plantagenet dynasty, has become a prototype for many of the morally ambiguous characters that populate the world of Game of Thrones. His alleged crimes, including the murder of his own nephews to secure his claim to the throne, have inspired countless fictional villains, each wrestling with the corrupting influence of power. The War of the Roses was not merely a conflict of personalities, however. It was a crucible in which the nature of kingship itself was tested and redefined. The notion of divine right, long held as inviolable, was shaken to its core as successive monarchs were deposed, some meeting grisly ends on the battlefield or the executioner's block. This upheaval of the established order resonates strongly in Martin's work, where the very concept of hereditary rule is called into question. The author's fictional world, like medieval England, is one where might often makes right, and where the common people are all too often caught in the crossfire of aristocratic ambition. The battles that punctuated the War of the Roses have become the stuff of legend, none more so than the Battle of Toten in 1461. This bloody engagement, fought in a snowstorm on Palm Sunday, remains one of the largest and most brutal battles ever fought on English soil. The ferocity of the combat and the scale of the casualties serve as a stark reminder of the human cost of dynastic conflict. For those fascinated by military history, the War of the Roses offers a wealth of material to explore. The period saw significant developments in warfare, from the increasing use of gunpowder to innovations in armor and weaponry. These advancements would lay the groundwork for the military revolutions of the following centuries, marking a transition from medieval to early modern warfare. The enduring fascination with the War of the Roses, both in its historical reality and its fictional reimaginings, speaks to the timeless nature of its themes. Power, ambition, loyalty, and betrayal. These are the elements that have always driven human drama. Whether in the corridors of medieval castles or on the screens of modern televisions, for content creators and history enthusiasts alike, the War of the Roses remains a rich vein of material waiting to be mined. a YouTube channel dedicated to exploring the connections between historical events and their fictional counterparts, could find no better subject. Imagine a series of fiction versus history videos, delving deep into the parallels between the historical figures of the War of the Roses and their fictional counterparts in Game of Thrones. One episode might explore the life of Margaret of Anjou, the formidable queen consort of Henry VI of Lancaster. Her fierce determination to secure the throne for her son in the face of York opposition bears striking similarities to characters like Cersei. Another might examine the career of Edward IV of York, whose military prowess and charismatic leadership echo traits found in figures like Robb Stark. The battles themselves offer ample opportunity for engaging content. A detailed analysis of the Battle of Toten, for instance, could captivate viewers with its tale of brutal combat in harsh conditions. By examining the strategies employed, the weapons used, and the consequences of the battle, such a video could appeal to both history buffs and fans of epic fantasy alike. Moreover, the War of the Roses provides a perfect backdrop for exploring broader historical themes: the role of women in medieval politics, the impact of war on the common people, the influence of the Church. All these topics and more can be examined through the lens of this conflict. As we reflect on the War of the Roses and its modern reinterpretations, we are reminded of the power of history to inspire and inform our understanding of the present. The struggles of Lancaster and York, though centuries old, continue to resonate with audiences today. In their triumphs and tragedies, their moments of glory and their acts of infamy, we see reflected our own hopes, fears, and human frailties. The red rose and the white may long since have faded, but the stories they represent continue to bloom in our collective imagination. As long as there are tales to be told of power and its pursuit, the echoes of the War of the Roses will continue to be heard, reminding us that in the great Game of Thrones, winter is always coming.